Could we be looking at one of the biggest upsets of week 4 in the college football landscape? We've got our traditional whiteout game. We've got Big 12 action, all sorts of rumors flying around college football. And oh, yeah, the marketplace. Plenty of line movement here over the last 24 hours. So we're going to do our best to sort it all out for you, give you a couple of game previews, and give you three best bets from three of the best at wagertalk.com as double R1L, Steve Merrill in the house, Adam Trigger with all sorts of inside scoop for you guys coming up, and Mr. Rob Vino. Finally, they opened up his neighborhood since they caught that guy. So, Rob, it's good to see you, man. Nice to see they let you out of the house there, my friend. But we're going to start and we're going to go to that whiteout, Merrill, because this is usually quite the atmosphere, they say. Maybe one of the top 3 or 4 college football experiences that they say you have to go to. I have better things to do than to drive into the middle of absolutely nowhere and know I can't get out for another 6 hours. But Penn State is going to be hosting Iowa, who's got a couple injuries. So what are we doing with the whiteout? Penn State, Iowa, Big Ten. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I like to look on the different ticket sites, and right now, most tickets, are available for 20, $30 for every game on Saturday. The tickets as low as $109 for this whiteout. So that's pretty impressive considering there's like, what, 100,000
Unreal.
seats. But right above it on the schedule, also at 7:30 Eastern, $579 for Notre Dame, Ohio State, the lowest price ticket in
Woo!
South Bend. So this is a big game, and both those games I've referenced made my top 25 video. We were going to talk the late game, Cal Washington on ESPN, but I did a standalone video, so I invite people to go check that out as well here on Wager Talk TV for that late night, late night West Coast game. But this is a big one, and I did dive into it also in the top 25 video. But I wanted a little more time to go a little deeper here on the show today. First thing, Penn State for me is a play-on team this season. I think they're a national title contender, and yes, they do control their own destiny because in a few weeks on October 21st, they go to Ohio State. That's a winnable game. Ohio State's offense has looked very mediocre so far this season. And this Penn State offense, I think, is very explosive. They've put up 30 points or more in all 3 games, averaging nearly 8 yards per pass attempt. And yes, they will be taking on a very good Iowa defense. I mean, Iowa's allowed less than 19 points per game for several seasons in a row now, giving up just 12 and a half on the year. But this is the same Iowa Hawkeyes offense. So let me tell you a little story that I learned back in week 1 when I went 3
Mm.
and 1, 75% on best bets. But you guessed it. The only one I missed back in week 1 was the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I fell for the hype that they were going to be a better offensive team this year and they're going to score some points. The OC apparently has a contract incentive, I think, if they average more than 24 points a game. Well, they're averaging 28 on the season, but it's misleading because they put up 41 last week against Western Michigan. They only scored 24 in that first game against Utah State as a 24-point favorite. Scored 20 the next game against Iowa State, who was a good defensive team. But now they're facing a very good defensive team in Penn State. And I just don't know when Iowa gets down in this game, which I think they will, if they have any backdoor cover potential because they're averaging less than 6 yards per pass attempt. Still a really bad offensive team throwing the ball. And we look at my database model, 10,000 game simulations has an average win by 19 and a half points for Penn State. So I like the Nittany lines. If you're going to play it, I'd lay it. I would like to get below the 2 touchdowns. Not sure that's going to happen, but keep an eye on this line as it doesn't kick off till 7:30 Eastern Saturday night.
Yeah, what that under 40 total, always interesting there with Penn State and Iowa in Happy Valley. And before we head to Waco here with Adam Trigger, quick suggestion: if you are new to us here at Wager Talk TV and you like college football content, you want top 25 previews, you want to see what's going on, maybe some best bets. We've got it all for you. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and you guys will get notified every time we post these college football videos throughout the week. Just like when we're talking about Texas taking home Baylor, Trig, and the Big 12 center stage here. Texas, could this finally be the year? Well, they got to handle business against Baylor this weekend. Are you buying into it, though?
Well, Joe, I'm starting to now. So I'll just share some info that I have here. Obviously, my good friend and Hustle Show co-host CT Betts went to Baylor. I got a chance to go on vacation to Telluride earlier this summer with another handful of his friends from Baylor. So I've, made some friends down there. They're all, football fans, close to the program and whatnot. And what I'm hearing is the situation there is not good. Um, Fans, alumni, not happy with the administration, similar to like what we talked about 2 weeks ago with Oklahoma State. And it's kind of
Mm.
played out like, since we had that conversation on this show 2 weeks ago, the NIL situation isn't great down there. And people are just like upset. I hear that, there's criticism of spending money on the wrong things. And just the bottom line is the fan base, the alumni, they're not happy with the direction the program is going. And that's usually like telling. And if you look at Oklahoma State now as opposed to when we kind of started tipping that on this show, it's a stark contrast there. And I'm almost kind of looking for something similar to happen with Baylor here. So the other thing that doesn't really help Baylor's cause is that this is just not a very good team, right? Like they've been without their quarterback. Blake Shapen's been hurt. Sawyer Robinson, I bet Baylor against Utah a couple weeks ago. I managed to get a cover on 7.5, thinking that Robinson was kind of, potentially not a drop off from Shapen. I think I was wrong about that. His completion percentage is something like 45% last week against FCS Long Island. Joe, I didn't know they had a football team. I got to be honest. I had no idea that the LIU Brooklyn or whatever it is had a football team. Sawyer Robinson went 10 for 22, 113 yards. He doesn't really throw the ball downfield, and now I'm hearing that he's got a bum ankle, and he may have some mobility issues this week. I don't see how that works out well against this Texas defense, which has been very good. Another thing with Baylor's offense, Richard Reese was awesome last year. I mean, he was like a dynamic runner, freshman running back. He's kind of been just, hasn't really done much this year. Hasn't looked like the guy he was last year. And it just all goes back to kind of the tone of this team. The other thing I was hearing from my Baylor friends, lack of energy. There's just no buzz around the program, no energy with this team. And they're starting to kind of pin it on Dave Aranda, who, it's funny because Dave Koken, when we were doing panel videos last year, had already started to say he thought Aranda would be gone after last year. I don't know, gone as in he probably would have left and went somewhere on his own accord, because of course he came off such a good season 2 years ago. But that's never encouraging either, right? Like that's just, those are types of things that you probably want to bet against. So that's how I would look at it here. Now, this one, as we started to kind of make this video, has started to move. I would look at finding a way to bet Texas. Now, I don't know if coming out and laying 15 or whatever it is the exact right way to play this. But here's another way you could potentially play this. So Texas has really taken criticism for slow starts. They obviously have their win over Alabama, but they didn't run it up against Wyoming. And I believe their other game was Rice, where they kind of struggled out of the gate. I think you could play the first half, maybe play it for like a half unit. If Texas covers the first half, maybe you get out of there, take your half unit and move on. If they don't, then just come over the top with like a full unit or a unit and a half on the second half. Because at some point, I think Texas is going to pull away in this game. I feel like Baylor, the one thing they do well, the one thing that's going to keep them in some games is their defense. But I go back to that Utah game. I thought their defense played outstanding, forced 2 turnovers, kept them in the game, still lost by a touchdown. And that was a Utah team with a third string quarterback off of their big win against Florida, right? Like this is, even if you don't think Texas offense has been like tip top so far this year, I still think that this is going to be a far, tougher offense for them to stop, especially, through the air. So Texas is probably going to hammer Baylor in this game. I would maybe, if you don't want to come out and lay the 2 scores, or obviously more than 2 scores at this point, I would play the first half smaller. If you win, just take your win and get out of there. And if they don't cover the first half, that's where you make a bigger bet on Texas second half, because at some point in this game, Joe, I do think that the class is going to show up and they're going to be able to win this game by double digits.
Yeah, not exactly the home field advantage it might have been over the last couple of years there with Baylor, as they'll welcome in Texas in what looks to be pretty much a one-sided affair there. Not so sure we're going to get the same kind of blowout in this next game, and who better to break down one of the what in under normal circumstances, Ravina, would probably be the most watched game on any given Saturday. But welcome Colorado and Deion Sanders, so there goes that. But Ohio State and Notre Dame, it's a big one here. Notre Dame at home as a dog. A lot of folks patting Hartman on the back here, including Lou Holtz, who quite honestly, I didn't even know was still alive. And I just saw him do an interview, which was quite honestly mind-blowing there. I thought it was like a Weekend at Bernie's thing here. But he's there, and of course he's blowing smoke towards Notre Dame. What do you think, though, in this big battle coming up on Saturday?
Well, it's kind of guesswork, right, Joe? I mean, and neither of these teams have played a schedule that allows us to say anything with conviction here. You look at Ohio State, Indiana, Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, Notre Dame, Navy, Tennessee State, North Carolina State, Central Michigan. Who cares about any of those, really? From a Notre Dame standpoint, you played Navy in game one, a Navy team that had a new offensive coordinator and was moving away from their triple option offense, a team that you outweighed across the front by 45 pounds a man. Tennessee State FCS, NC State with Brennan Armstrong taking over there, and of course Central Michigan, a team that allows over 500 yards a game. So I don't know what we can take from Notre Dame so far. And Ohio State, much the same. Indiana, lousy offense. Youngstown State, run-oriented FCS team. Good FCS team, but run-oriented. And Western Kentucky, a one-arm team. They have an air raid offense where they just throw it consistently and showed up for a paycheck. So again, I think we have to look between the lines here at a lot of this stuff. And what could we care about after those games were played? I think one thing with Ohio State is the offense did get rolling last week. There were a lot of Chicken Little, the sky is falling after they didn't score against Indiana, after they didn't perform well against Youngstown State. And then last week, they scored 63 against Western Kentucky. They finally got off the mat and put up a bunch of points. For Notre Dame, I think what we could care about is the fact that this is going to be offensively the most balanced and the most explosive team that's shown up for a big time game like this in the last 6 years, maybe more. Certainly with Sam Hartman now, that solves the equation right there. Now they can throw the ball downfield to go with a running game. These big time teams can't stack the line against them. Their receivers can get open and catch the ball. It's a different type of Notre Dame team here that Hartman brings instant credibility if you need a number. And again, I get, because I just said it, that the competition hasn't been great, but Notre Dame's got 12 touchdowns in 4 games from outside the red zone. I think that indicates a little level of explosiveness that they haven't had before. I think in my mind, Joe, and this is just my personal opinion, that the burden falls all on the defenses in this game. I think the defensive numbers that have been acquired so far by these two teams, that have been produced by these two teams, are the ones that might be a little bit misleading. Ohio State, they faced 2 QBs with methodical run offenses that they should have dominated. They did. And then, of course, like I say, Western Kentucky, all air all the time. You could let your ears down and go after the passer. WKU didn't care much. Can that defense pressure Sam Hartman? Can that defense stand up to Notre Dame's offensive line and the running game that's moving the ball? Estime is averaging 8.3 per carry at this point in time. And for Notre Dame, can they stay close to that wide receiving core led by Marvin Harrison? I mean, a lot of people would argue that this is the best wide receiving core in the nation. And so Kyle McCord, who seemed to find pretty good connections last week, and the passing game, if he's protected, neither of these teams, by the way, where pass protection is concerned, one's allowed 1 sack every 27.3 attempts. The other's allowed 1 sack every 28 attempts. So defensive lines, pass rushes are in question here as well. I think if you're just looking for ways you want to bet the side, you would say to yourself, will Kyle McCord stand up in South Bend? First real road test, 7:30 Eastern at night game. Crowd will be going crazy. It's a big stage for him. It's not a big stage for Sam Hartman. So there's obvious edge at quarterback that leans toward Notre Dame. And something else that you might want to consider here, Notre Dame hasn't shown it much yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame comes out in some stages of this game and plays with up tempo. Sam Hartman at Wake Forest was an extreme tempo quarterback, and he can handle it. And it could be something that Notre Dame's kept under wraps for 4 games here that could surprise Ohio State. I don't know what Ohio State could do that would surprise Notre Dame. So I think looking at those two things, you'd probably lean towards the home team plus the points. But I'd rather play over. To me, this game sits at 55, which is for modern day college football, that's a pretty low number. One of these two teams, if not both, is capable of being in the 30s. I think big play capabilities exist all over the field. So I'll probably look at it that way, Joe, over 55.
All right, looking at the over here and one of the primetime matchups, Ohio State taking on Notre Dame. And now we've got three best bets for you from these guys. And before we dive into those games, if you happen to have a question about any of the games these guys just talked about or are about to talk about, or if you got any question on the card here in this week 4 slate, drop it in the comment section below. Steve Merrill, Adam Trigger, Rob Vino, they're keeping an eye on this comment section all weekend long. So if you guys got any questions, drop them in. They will absolutely answer it for you and do their best to point you in the right direction. As we go full circle, we welcome back in Double R and 1L. So Steve Merrill, let's talk here about your best bet on the show, because I kind of loved this game here a little bit, Merrill, and I can't wait to see which side or total you might be looking at here. Break it down for us.
Yeah, we're going to look at a free play on Saturday afternoon, a 1:30 Eastern game in the MAC between Western Michigan and Toledo. And first of all, I've got 5 strong best bets locked and loaded right now for Saturday college football for my clients. And you pay attention. 12-3, 80% college and pro football run the last couple of weeks on best bets. And I've got 5 of them for Saturday. Also a bonus free play posted on my page. I've done also several standalone videos this week here on Wager Talk TV, and also my top 25 video, 6 head-to-head top 25 games analyzed in depth right here on Wager Talk TV. So check that out. And the free play we're going to look at for this show is under the total between Toledo and Western Michigan. First of all, very misleading result last year. Western Michigan having a mediocre season. Their finale on the year, their home finale, they win 20-14 as a 10.5-point dog. And boy, was it misleading. They only had 188 total yards in that game. They bring in a new head coach, the former OC Lance Taylor, the offensive coordinator at Louisville. And I do think he'll start to turn this program around, but it's young in the season right now. And I'm not looking for instant success from this Western Michigan offense. And let's not count the week 1 result against St. Francis of Pennsylvania when they put up 35 points, because Western Michigan has scored only 7 and 10 points the past 2 weeks on the road at Syracuse and Iowa. And now they're on the road for 3 straight weeks in a row. Not a great scheduling spot. And they're facing a pretty good Toledo defense. It's given up just 16.5 points a game, 4.5 yards per play. So I don't see much out of Western Michigan, but I think Toledo might be held in check as well. Toledo's taken advantage of a very weak schedule. Yes, they played Illinois, but they played Texas Southern and San Jose State since. And the 7.5 yards per pass has come against teams that allow 8.6 on average. The 6.2 yards per play have come against teams that allow 6.4. And the 40 points a game against opponents that have given up over 42 on average. So not sure this Toledo offense is as explosive as the numbers might tell you. And it all adds up to some value with the under in this game on Saturday afternoon. So take a look at Western Michigan, Toledo, under 53 at 1:30 Eastern Saturday. And don't forget, 5 strong best bets right now on my page, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com. You can get a 3-day sampler. If you're a new user, first-time users can try 3 days and nights for just $55 with Steve 3. But the best promo is available to everybody, and it's on my page right now, a full year of all sports, football, baseball, basketball, for just over $3 a day with promo code SM365. Full details, check it out now, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com.
All right, boom. Good stuff there, Steve. And let's go, Trig. I'm looking forward to this one, too, because, well, you know why I'm rooting against OU, taking on Cincinnati here. But how are you approaching this game here? A big game for OU that everyone seems to think they're back. They figured some things out here. Have they really, though, Trig?
Well, first, yeah, I mean, it's a big game for Oklahoma, but it's a huge game for Cincinnati. Listen, Joe, I was at campus with panel member. He's not on today, but Jeff Michaels took me down to Cincinnati. We went to a basketball game earlier this year at Fifth Third Arena. He went to Cincinnati for a semester or two, showed me around campus. And I just want to say a couple things. One, Nippert Stadium looks awesome. It looks like such a cool place to watch a football game. It's right in the middle of campus. But 2, the game we went to back in January, this is a basketball game. And the Big 12 signs were out. they were so amped about like making the move to the Big 12. And now it's finally here, their conference opener, their first game, first conference game in the Big 12 for football. So that crowd was awesome for a noon basketball game. I got to imagine that there's going to be a great buzz in the stadium for the noon kickoff here. This is not going to be like a sleepy noon kickoff. I think they're going to have a great crowd. I think everyone's going to be really into it. And so, from a motivational standpoint, or just like, kind of getting out, coming out hot, being ready to play, I think the edge there sides with Cincinnati. Now, as far as Cincinnati's concerned, I had an easy winner on them a couple weeks ago. It took them plus 6.5 against Pitt. Felt like they dominated that game pretty much start to finish. It was one of my sort of most stress-free wins of the season. They outgained Pitt by over 100 yards. Their defense was excellent, and the game was never in doubt. And then they turn around last week and lose to Miami, Ohio. Little brother, like right up the road, Miami of Ohio, team that they're probably supposed to dominate. It can't be more than like a half hour from. They have to be like right down the road from each other. I've actually passed it before driving in that direction. So, I mean, you want to talk about like let down and have to be really upset about a result. That has to be it right there. I think that might get Cincy a little bit fired up coming into this game, in addition to just, being ready for their first Big 12 conference game. So Oklahoma, on the other hand, yeah, I mean, should they win this game? Of course. But this is, regardless of how this game goes or what you think about Cincinnati, this is by far Oklahoma's toughest test. It's not even close. It's been cupcake city for Oklahoma so far. Arkansas State at home won by 70. No contest right there. Tulsa never had a chance in that game last week. Even SMU was still like a pretty big underdog in that game, and it was a comfortable win for Oklahoma. So now they're going to be challenged. Cincinnati, 5 sacks in that Pitt game. I think their defense can get active here and give Oklahoma, some trouble. Now, if Dylan Gabriel just comes out and torches them, I mean, it's certainly possible. But there's going to be a lot more resistance from the Cincinnati defense, and there should be some pressure that gives Oklahoma a little bit of a hard time here. Emory Jones is a veteran. He's been in college for like a decade, probably like his 6th year in college at this point. He's on his 3rd different stop. He's at least someone I think can make plays and be smart enough to sort of keep his team in the game on the offensive side of the ball. I just don't know that Oklahoma comes in here and blows out Cincy like they've been blowing out some of these other teams. So I like Cincinnati. I took them plus the points here. It's one of my client plays this week, so 4% play. I played it at 14.5. I think it's still 14. And 14 or better is fine with me here. I really think the Bearcats are going to hang around in this one, Joe. I don't know if they get the upset win for you as the Oklahoma State fan you are. I know that's what you want to see, but I do think Cincinnati gets the money here and keeps this one close.
All right. I think you're right, though, right? You're talking about an Oklahoma team that, it looks great when you don't play anybody. So we'll see what happens here in this week 4 matchup. And that leads us to Mr. Rob Vino with another intriguing best bet here. And guys, quick reminder, hit that subscribe and like button if you enjoy college football content like you're getting right now. We've got all the top 25 games covered for you here. So go ahead and hit that subscribe and like button. As love this one too from you here, Rob. I did like the side. I'm interested on your take when it comes to the total of this Nevada-Texas State matchup.
Well, I think at this point, Joe, they've given us enough room, right? They've given us 62 back. They've given us 61 back. They've given us a push on 59. The money's all come in on under here. And I think I understand why. I just don't agree with why. But let's take a look at Texas State right now, 3-0 against the spread. Not straight up, but against the spread. They're ahead of schedule at this point. First-year head coach G.J. Kinnick going to play a defense in Nevada that's allowing 524 total yards per game. Now, they did play USC. They did play Kansas, both offensive juggernauts. Still, 524 is unacceptable. They're allowing 74.4% completions and 8.7 yards per play. It's nearly a first down every time the other team snaps the ball. For Texas State, TJ Finley, ex-LSU, ex-Auburn quarterback, having a field day here at TSU. The offense he's directing right now, 7 yards per play and 44 points per game thus far. remember, they played Baylor and they have played Texas San Antonio, UTSA. So it's not a total chump schedule that they've played. They went on the road for both of those contests. And it should be noted that despite the problems at Baylor that Adam laid out, this team did score 3 touchdowns from outside the red zone against Baylor. So they're explosive. The offense is balanced. It's not just all throw, 191 on the ground, 264 through the air. And I think that balance just helps them exploit the Nevada secondary even more. USC was tremendous at it in that opener. The Nevada offense, let's look at the other side of the football, 266 and 263 total yards gained in the last 2 weeks. Not good numbers. But when they were in chase mode against USC, they threw for 311 yards. Texas State's defense is not good. The offense is really good. The defense is not good. So maybe Nevada makes some hay in this contest offensively as well. I think their 31-24 loss last week is a little bit deceiving. They're outgained by 178 total yards in that contest. And let's go through why, Joe, because Nevada decided last week that, you know what, we can't keep up with these teams that can score. So we're going to change our offense and we're going to become run oriented. And I think this is why we see the drop in the total. 37 rush attempts last week, a run pass balance of 62.2% run calls, and pretty heavy when you get over 60-40 run. And so they figured we'll shorten the game, we'll condense the game, we'll stay in the game. It did end up working out that way, even though they were outgained miserably. But the game still got to 55 points, 31-24. I think that's important to note. And that's a great theory when your opponent ranks 108th in tempo, which Kansas does. It's a great theory when your opponent knows they can win the game. It's a great theory when your opponent's willing to play along because they have a look ahead to a conference opener next week against BYU. None of that stands for Texas State. Texas State doesn't care. G.J. Kinney's operating under this take back Texas cry. And they scored 77 against Jackson State to show you how much they care. They'll score 77 again if they can. They had 63 at the end of 3 quarters last week and tacked on 2 more touchdowns because their backup quarterback is Malik Hornsby, who was in the fight for the starting job at Arkansas just a year ago. So not only do they have Finley, but they have Hornsby. They've got 2 SEC quarterbacks here. So if they get ahead, it doesn't matter if they switch out quarterbacks. I think that Texas State here, especially if they get out in front and Nevada has to chase, scores at will. I think they get into the 40s. They don't care about slowing this game down. Again, they're number 9 in tempo in the country. 1 play every 21 seconds. They don't have anything to look ahead to except another victory. This guy's playing for recruiting season. And right now, what he's showing recruits on the offensive side of the football, you'd love to go play for. 59 to me just seems way too low, Joe, in a game that I think probably ends up somewhere in the 45-24, something like that vicinity. So to me, I understand why the money's going the way it has. Don't agree with it. I think over 59 is real good value here. Play this Texas State Nevada game up and over 59 points.
Texas State averaging 44 a game. So, yep, kind of, I'm with you there, Ruff. Should be maybe one of the more entertaining games to watch, at least from Texas State's sideline anyway. But there's a lot going on in the world of college football in this week 4, guys. Opportunities presenting themselves, great market value in a bunch of games. We just talked about a 2-touchdown dog here that can get within the money. We've seen some line movement, primetime games. We got a little of everything for you here as we head into this week 4, but we're not done there. Go ahead, hit that video on the screen right now, and you will get all of the top 25 game previews that we have, and there is a lot to go over here. So on behalf of Steve, Adam, and Rob, we appreciate the time. Best of luck with all your plays this weekend, guys. We'll see you again next week for week 5 in the college football landscape. Good luck.